Hey everybody, so for today's video I will be covering dot plot and stem and leaf plot. Now a dot plot is pretty similar to a frequency table in which they show how many times a single value appears, except it portrays these values in a more visual way. Now you first start off by writing it a straight line such as so, and then write all the values in the given data points in ascending order. Above each number, you put a dot for every time you see a single value. For example, in question 1 in the course revision sheet, 85 is shown 4 times, 86 once, 87 3 times, etc. Now, when you're writing a dot plot, do not forget to write a description for the values, otherwise you may lose marks if this does come as a written part. This description is just how the question describes the numbers. In this case, it's grades, or it could be number of apples, number of something, whatever. They may also ask you to convert a dot plot into a frequency table, such as this one here. Grid question 41 does ask this, except with a different set of points. Now you just write values or grades depending on what data they give you, if they give you a description or not, and a frequency line. You can either write it horizontally or vertically. In this case, I just wrote it horizontally. You could write it horizontally, such as in this question here. It does not make much of a difference. So you just write values, all the numbers in ascending order, and their respective frequencies, which is just the number of dots. Moving on to the stem and leaf plot, we'll start out by just explaining how you read a stem and leaf plot. So a question, for example, would give you a data set like this, and they'd ask you, for example, to read it or to list all the values. Now you see, if they just wrote this question, just this data point, you could not answer them because you do not have a key. The key tells you how you're supposed to read the data points. Now, for question A here, they're asking you to list all the data with the key 56, meaning 0.56. That means, for example, 02 would be 0.02. 25 would be 0.25. 50 would be 0.50, etc. Now B is just another key. 56 means 56. So 02 would just be 2. 45 will be 45, and then you continue on. They may also ask you to convert a stem and leaf plot into a frequency table, just like they did for the dot plot. Now, for this question specifically, they ask you to write a frequency table with intervals of width 2. So that means the difference between the two numbers should be 2. So you can do 0, 2, 2, 4, and continue. Now make sure when you're writing these intervals that the first one is a closed bracket and the second bracket is an open one, because you do not include the number 2 in this interval, because you start the second interval with 2 and you do not want to repeat the values. So let's insert these into our data table. So interval 0 to 2 with open bracket, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, and 6 to 8. Now I do understand that we do not have any data for 8, or for 6, but you just include it in the variable because we need intervals of 2. Now write down all the frequencies. So you just check how many numbers you have in the leaf of each interval. So interval 0, 2 is just 0, 1 because 2 is not included in this interval. So in this case you have 6 values. 2 to 4 includes 2, 3, but not 4. Again, you have a frequency of 6. 4 to 6 would be just 4 to 5 since 6 isn't actually included in this interval. And in this case you have a frequency of 10. Now 6 to 8 is simply 7 because that is the only values between 6 and 8 with a frequency of 2. And that's simply how you would write a frequency table. If you have intervals, it is recommended to write it in a vertical way, but if you have exact numbers like the previous question, you can write it in a horizontal manner. Now moving on to actually drawing a stem and leaf plot ourselves. So the question will be given to you as just a random set of data right here. And this is the format you're supposed to write it in: stem, leaf, and right below it is the key. Do not forget the key. It is very important, otherwise people will not be able to read your plot and you will lose marks if this does come as a written part. So when you're separating data into a stem and leaf graph, you have to see what numbers do a majority of them have similar to each other. So 6 and 8 both have a 0 before it. 12, 14, 16, 18 all have 1. The 20s have 2, and 31 has 3 on its own. So your stem would be 0, 1, 2, 3. And your leaf would be just the second numbers. This is just the most convenient way to write the leaf plot. So in this case it would be 0, 6, 8. 1 will be 2, 2, 4, 6, 6, 8, 8. And yes, you can have repeating numbers. You do not have to insert it only once. 2 is 2, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 3, 5, 7, and 3 is simply 1. Your key, again, is how you're supposed to read your graph. You can pick any number here that you'd like to represent the graph. Let's pick, for example, 12 right here. So 1-2, so stem dash leaf means 12. And there you go, that's how you write the stem and leaf plot. They may ask you, for example, to write intervals, and that just means you have to, in a way, simplify this or just separate the stem and leaf plot into a longer plot. So for example, instead of having 0, 1, 2, 3, you'll have 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Because as you can see, 1 and 2 have a large number of values, which you can separate into 2 different stems, essentially. So the first one can consist of all the values between 1 and 14, while the second one can consist of all the values between 15 and 19. Similar for the 2, so the first 2 can consist of 20 to 24, while the second 2 can consist of 25 to 29. So let's transfer all the values onto this one. So 0, you have 6, 8 still, because you do not have 2 separate sides, for example 0 to 5 or 5 to 6. You just have 5 to 9, so 6 and 8. Then when you have 2 to 4, the second one you have 6, 6, 8, 8. For 2 you have 0, 1, 1, 3. the second two having 5, 7, and the 3 remaining with 1. This is just another way you could write it, particularly if they ask you for intervals of, for example, 0 to 5, 5 to 10. Again, just remember to not forget the key and to write it in this format. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something and have a nice day.